Most of us are familiar with the vine, "You're not my dad." And if you're not, it is essentially a child telling a man that he's not his dad. I myself have actually told someone he wasn't my dad. Probably not in the way that you were thinking though. My experience telling someone that they weren't my dad stems from CMA Fest in downtown Nashville. It all started after me and my dad had gotten out of the parking garage and hit the Broadway Strip. If you've ever been to Nashville, you know that it is always busy. And if you've ever been to CMA Fest, you know that it's about twice as busy as Nashville normally is. I personally would describe going to CMA Fest and making your way to a stage as like being a cow herded into a cattle chute. Just after me and my dad had gotten past Tootsie's Orchid Lounge, I walked at a faster speed and managed to get away from him. My father was generally someone that you could recognize based on his many different tattoos. The distinct tattoo that I could usually identify him by was a woman on his tricep. However, on this occasion, he had it covered up. This was not the only tattoo that I could remember because he also had a star on his elbow. This star, which was gray and shaded black, must not have been an original idea from my dad. I would like to believe that if my dad had had Pinterest, this is where he would have gotten it from. The star was the exact reason I told someone that they weren't my dad. I should have noticed when looking at this man when I gotten lost from my dad and walked faster than him that he did not have the same skin tone, hair color, height, none of the same characteristics of my dad. But being 10 years old, that must have slipped my mind. After failing to notice that this man and my dad looked nothing alike, I started saying, "Dad, Dad, Dad." That man, the man that was in front of me, didn't turn around, which should have been an obvious that he wasn't my father. Eventually, I took the notion to grab this man. When I grabbed him, he turned looking at me, and I realized that was not my dad. Looked him dead in the eyes and said, "You're not my dad." Probably as terrified as I have ever sounded. After realizing that this man was not my dad, I had a moment of panic and started to look around and around for my dad. I looked to the left of me, to the right of me, to the front of me. For some reason, the first thing I didn't do was look behind me. When I finally turned around and looked behind me, I seen my dad and realized that I wasn't lost, that he had just been behind me the whole time. So he had probably watched me grab this man, knowing that it wasn't him. The lesson that I should have learned from this day was that I probably should have realized what my father looked like, but not based on tattoos. And then the lesson that I learned that was the most important was that if you're in a crowd, don't get away from the people you're with. It's not fun to get lost.